Well, hello and welcome to the Church Doctrine. This is episode number 4. The previous 3 episodes are all available at the usual suspect places, and including now on our brand new CRUSADE Radio Network YouTube channel. But if you really want the whole effect and you really want to help kind of promote this, go get them on Substack, thekingdude.substack.com. And of course, they appear on my website, on the Crusade Channel website, and all that. So the Church Doctrine is a long, rambling conversation primarily with people that I know, or at least I've started it with people that I know, because I keep getting bombarded with, you want to interview this person, you want to interview them. I'm like, well, what do I talk to them about? I don't know them. And so we have had conversations with my dear friend Frank Wright, and I think we're going to stick with the movie theme. So Frank Wright's was The Right Stuff, W-R-I-G-H-T. Brother Andres Marie's was Oh Brother, Wherefore Art Thou? And Michael Hitchborn's, I think, was the best and the funniest ever, was The Hitchborner's Guide to the Galaxy. Now, my next guest here on the Church Doctrine, she doesn't know what movie title that I'm going to use for hers, but I've already picked it, and I'm not going to tell her because she might bail on the whole endeavor if I do. So it's a funny story, and I'm going to go ahead and unmute her and welcome in Carrie Gress, the author, mother, entrepreneur, blogger, candle maker, not a butcher or a baker. No, maybe you are a baker. Are you a baker?
I like to bake. I bake. Yeah, I do like to bake.
Okay, funny
I'm definitely not a butcher. Not a butcher.
Funny story. First time I ever had her on, we had booked her through her. Okay, who published the Marian option? Was that Tan?
Tan. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't remember who the booking agent was at the time, but we had scheduled Carrie, and this is before Maggie was actually producing the show. And I had blown her off twice. And I go like, oh, God, I get an email and go like, dude, you were supposed to have Carrie Gress on. I'm like, oh, man, I complained. Let's rebook it. Second time, I got an email like, you were supposed to have Carrie on. I'm like, and I made some excuse, some lame-o excuse up. And then the third time, about 5 minutes before she was supposed to come on, this is the time Maggie was with me by then. About 5 minutes before she was supposed to come on, I was getting ready to do it for a third time. And then Maggie goes, aren't you supposed to have a guest today? And I went, no! And I said, do you have the contact info? And I think that she called you or you called her and like, yeah, I think I'm supposed to be on the show here today. And it's funny because it took 3 times the charm, Holy Trinity, all 3 things are happening there. But after you and I talked for the first time, we got along famously and swimmingly. And we have been correspondents and best buds ever since. So that was back at 2017, I want to say, 2017 or 2018. And we've met, we've had dinner together. She's appeared at our Congress. She's been a guest on the show about 25 times. And she was on my short list of people to go to for a Church Doctrine episode. So here we are, Carrie Gress. Carrie, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. I feel very honored to be in the top 5 of the your new show here. This is exciting. We've never done video before either. It's always on the phone. So I'm ready though, because usually when we're on the phone, I always have a notepad, and now I can prove it. So.
Well, maybe you were in the top 3, and
I didn't want to say that.
I have so many things going. Well, I have so many things going here. It's impossible to keep up with everything. And the truth be known, I just forget. And I mean, some days I go like, oh man, I was supposed to do this. There was one day last 2 weeks ago, I completely spaced out, and I didn't go to the doctor. I had a doctor's appointment, and usually they blow my phone up, and on this day they didn't blow my phone up. And I thought about it that night. I'm like, I was supposed to go to the doctor.
Oh no,
I'm not sick or anything. So anyway, she is definitely in the top 5, and there's so much to talk with Carrie about. Let's start with the stuff that you and I have not talked about because it's good and fresh, and you probably don't get a chance to talk about it. Let's talk about let's talk about little Carrie. Where did you grow up?
Oh, wow. We haven't talked about this.
No,
wow.
we haven't.
I grew up in Oregon, in Eugene, Oregon, which is used to be the pot capital of the world, other than Berkeley, I think. And My parents gratefully were not liberal, but I was surrounded by liberals, radical liberals, like the restaurant that I was a hostess at in college, Ken Kesey used to eat at. And, it was a wild place. But you also had like all the Nike people, because Nike was started there. So it was sort of this weird combination of runners and marijuana. That's really what I grew up in. And, gratefully I chose the running side of things instead of the other side of things. But I played tennis and grew up there, very nominally Catholic. And then that all changed. My father passed away, and I think as a teenager, and I think that was really what sort of pushed me in to start thinking about bigger questions. And so here we are after many years and leaving Oregon. I love Oregon, but it's crazy. And I visit when I can, but it's not, we've actually thought about moving back there, but there's just not really any work for me or my husband there. So here we are in Virginia.
Yeah, but you can kind of work from anywhere, can't you?
I can. My husband cannot. So, and he's got the much bigger salary than I do. So, at this point, we're kind of rooted to Virginia at this point.
As it should be. Now she is a bread maker, but she's not the chief bread winner.
Well said. I'm going to put that on business cards, I think. Well said.
She's not in charge of making all of the bread. Is he from? And of course, I've met him, so I know your husband. Is he an Oregonian as well?
No, he's actually from Texas. And it's funny because my grandmother always warned me against men from Texas. So gratefully, she passed before she met him. Although she would love him, but. She married a Texan. My grandfather was from Fort Worth and very, he wasn't very worthy, I would say. He was very much a philanderer. So I think she definitely had a chip on her shoulder against Texans. But my husband is certainly proving her wrong.
So did you meet, was it an inter-school rivalry? Because you went to the University of Oregon, didn't you? You went somewhere up there.
I did. I did my bachelor's degree in history at the University of Oregon. And then we met much later. I was working as a journalist in Rome for Zenit, for those of you who remember Zenit. Zenit News, it was during the Benedict papacy, so it was sort of the glory days of Zenit. And then he had been a monk at Norcia, one of the founding monks there at the monastery of Norcia, the Benedictines, and left there. And he was teaching at the University of Dallas. And so we met in Rome. And that's where we actually got married while we were both still living in Rome. We thought about getting married at Norcia, and we even got permission to get married there, but with one stipulation that no one in town could know that we were getting married. So, I don't know how you bring in all these Americans in a white dress and, all of that and try and hide a wedding. So we got married in Oregon, actually, and then went back to Italy for a little bit and then came back to the U.S. We met over there.
I thought you were going to say the condition was that you can get married here in Norcia, but you can't honeymoon here. It is a monastery after all.
You have to give us one of your first sons. One of your first son needs to come our way, which we would not object to for sure. But in any event, no, we did not do that. And my husband actually went back after we got married for a brief period of time and learned how to make cheese from local cheesemakers there in Norcia, and that's sort of one of his secret skills is cheese making. So who knows when that will come in handy.
Well, I met him, and I didn't know the Norcia story, but he is a very kind, gentle soul. I mean, I could see him kind of as a Benedictine, so walking around with his hands tucked into his into his cast, like omni. You kind of see him doing that, actually.
Yeah. No, we actually have they made bookmarks of the monks at different points, and we have one of him with hood on and exactly that position. So, he was very much a Benedictine, but it was clearly not his calling. So he's moved on.
So you spent time in Rome. You went to Norcia, and then after you get out of the University of Oregon and your basic studies, you go somewhere and get a PhD. And I must admit, I don't know where, but I know you get a PhD. Where'd you get the PhD?
So the PhD is from Catholic U. So I went to the University of Oregon, and at that point, when I finished, I just realized, like, it was an odd thing, but I thought the only thing I really wanted to do with my life was get a master's degree in philosophy, which is strange. I mean, I had been a history major. I was looking at MBA programs, all kinds of things. And so I ended up at Steubenville. And that was really life-changing for me. So I did my master's there. And that's actually where I met my colleague and co-author, Noelle Mehring. She and I have known each other for decades now. We were good friends at Steubenville. And so I ended up then going on and doing the master's degree at Catholic University. And that was very circuitous. I spent a little bit at University of Virginia because they had a lot more money and I was going to be able to do it more quickly there. And then that didn't pan out properly. They said my classes were the history of philosophy, not philosophy classes. So anyway, I ended up leaving UVA and going back to Catholic U and just sort of gradually matriculating while I was working full time. And then I left Washington to do my comps and do my, Catholic U has an incredible amount of requirements that I think that's sort of part of the whole process is just, there's 2 different sets of comps. And then of course there's the dissertation and all of that. So I had finished all the classwork and I wanted to leave Washington. I actually got the great advice. Michael Novak's sister, Marianne Novak, who's just a lovely woman. She said, if you ever want to get married, you have to leave Washington. And I thought, okay, I think this is good advice. And so I left Washington, and that's when I was finishing up my comps and my dissertation, and I moved to Italy, having found an apartment there, which is really kind of miraculous to do. It's very hard to find housing in Rome, as an American especially. And then I was hired by Zenit. So all of these things sort of came together, and that's when I met my husband. And it was actually really funny because I thought, Lord, you have told me, I know I need to leave Washington, but you're calling me to Rome where every person that I know is ordained. Like, this doesn't seem right, but I'm just going to go with it. So anyway, sure enough, a mutual friend of my husband's and mine kept asking me to go out to dinner with these professors from University of Dallas. And I kept saying, I don't want anything to do with professors from anywhere. And sure enough, finally one night I decided to join them. And that's when I was actually intended for the other professor, but my husband and I really hit it off, and that's sort of the rest is history. So anyway, you just never know what God has planned, right?
I thought you were going to say with the comps and stuff at Catholic U that the only thing that's not required is that you be a Catholic.
No, actually the philosophy department is really solid.
Is it?
And that's kind of the remarkable thing. Yeah, it's sort of, and it's things at Catholic U I think have changed dramatically. I know the Bush School is really improving, and I'm hearing a lot of great improvements elsewhere. But no, when I was at Catholic U, the philosophy school was just rock solid, and that was the one place where it was just really awesome to be, an Orthodox Catholic and not be in trouble for it.
Well,
so
the only philosophy dude that I know from, and I think he's a Catholic, is Klaus Rin. And I know that Klaus Rin is not a Catholic.
Okay, I don't know him, and I don't know, he was certainly not there when I was there, but there's Monsignor Whipple, who was just an amazing Thomist, and he was great. There's Tim Noon and Brad Lewis and Monsignor Sokolowski, and just all kinds of really incredible people are there, and some of whom I've stayed in touch with. I could list up, that's the great thing is I could list like 15 people that I think are really solid and fantastic, that I was really blessed to work with there.
Now, most people wouldn't know your PhD though, and this is I think this is right. Your PhD's in medieval studies, isn't it?
Well, I did most of my coursework in medieval studies, but the funny thing was that I wrote my dissertation on Jacques Maritain and Alistair MacIntyre on human rights. And that was my topic. That was actually my second topic. The first topic was on Karol Wojtyła and culture. And I had moved to Poland. I had learned to read Polish. I had done all of these things. And then my director left, and I wasn't deep enough I was still learning Polish. So I wasn't deep enough into the writing stage of things to warrant sticking with him. And so I needed a new topic. And my good friend Russ Hittinger reached out to him. I was like, Russ, I need your help. I need a new topic. I'm pregnant. My husband and I just got married. I've got to figure these things out. So anyway, he was great. He said, do something that is in a language that you already know. And my French is very good. So I chose Maritain, and and McIntyre, because McIntyre is in English. And it was great because human rights obviously is such a wide body of knowledge. I went all the way back to Thomas Aquinas when talking about rights. I go through, the whole period of the Enlightenment and all of that and look at the pros and cons of both. And so it was a really great topic for me because it covered such an expanse of ideas. Many of them are I'm still dealing with on a contemporary basis as far as understanding the rationalists and all of these things that have related to feminism in that research that I'm doing. So anyway, and I've been told it's actually one of the most cited dissertations that has not ever been published. It's never been made into a book or anything, but it's been cited significantly for just a unknown up on the shelf kind of dissertation.
Wait, I see. I did not know. Tu parles le français. J'ai étudiant le français.
C'est fantastique.
La petite. I have a vocabulary of 750 words. I don't know how to use them.
Oh, that's the problem. That's the problem. So my problem is I've learned Polish and Italian, and so I mix all of them together. So actually, it was funny when my husband and I got engaged. We were in France, and it took me several days to finally stop adding Italian words into my French. And he said, as soon as I knew I couldn't understand you, I knew you got it back. So yeah, I think it's very challenging when you're doing multiple languages for sure.
Yes, tu maries pèse Texas.
Oui.
Okay, well, I'll start with the French because I suck at it. Now, I'm really good. If you put it on the screen and tell me to read it, oh, dude, I can knock it out. Oh, yeah. Oh, I can read a French newspaper.
Good job with that sentence there. That was robust. And I'm proud of you.
I find it the most fascinating of all the Romance languages because I've been studying Latin for 13 years, and all I can do is say I'm studying at it. Because it's impossible. But you start reading French, you go like, well, that's just, the Latin and French are like this. They just learn to kind of beautify, to make the language, it just flows so much better than Latin. Not that there's anything wrong with Latin, but French, it truly is a Romance language. I mean, when je parle le français, le roman.
Well, this is why Pepe Le Pew uses French. I mean, it's beautiful when Pepe Le Pew, even a skunk can make French sound beautiful. So yeah, it's an incredible language.
Let's go back to the medieval era for a second here, and I wanted to show you something. This is this is from my friend Michael Warren Davis, and this is from his book. And I thought that that we could kind of just look at this page here, because I thought that when I first read this, when the Reactionary Mind came out, I was like, you know what? I'm one of those people that thought that medieval people were like you see them in the movies, or like Monty Python portrays them. But you read Warren Davis here, and this is the part that I was most enamored by. In spring, the men stay up all night drinking craft beer, roasting pigs and lambs for the Easter feast. Then they'll eat with apples and plums and wild strawberries. This they'll eat with apples and plums and wild strawberries. The boys will crown the girls with garlands of wildflowers and woo them with memorized poetry. Imagine that. Broods of children will chase rabbits through the briar. Someone will play the guitar, and people will dance. It doesn't sound like the life of someone in the medieval time was that bad, I guess is the point that I took away from that.
Yeah, no, I think this was one of the things that was so mind-blowing to me, and why I really loved the medieval period was just the nuance and the depth that is actually there intellectually. But yeah, I think there's, on the cultural level, there's so many different things that are happening. Even now, I'm spending a lot of time. I'm actually working on a series of a line of products that is using a lot of medieval art, recreating it in a way that feels contemporary and applying it to kind of our lifestyle products at Theology of Home. And it's just mind blowing. It's so beautiful. There's so many elements, and I'm capturing ideas from different churches and Romanesque churches, and just the different designs on ceilings and on floors and all of those kinds of things. And I think the level of creativity is just it's just amazing. But I remember one of my funniest memories about studying philosophy was trying to explain to secular people in Seattle in particular. I have a lot of relatives in Seattle. And I remember telling one of my cousins why I was studying philosophy. And I was trying to explain the nuance and depth of someone like Thomas Aquinas. And, it was just one of those moments where it was like, this is not translating well. Like, this person has zero context. They have no idea what medieval philosophy, certainly what it is, but much less how it actually looked and how nuanced and just the intense scrutiny is not the right word, but the intense kind of intellectualness about it and all the distinctions, all of those things are hard to convey, I think, in our contemporary culture. But that was just what I was completely taken by, was just how many different nuances they could take, how many different distinctions they could make, how deeply they could go into these concepts in a way that we sort of just scratch the surface of and think that we're really doing some deep stuff. And then you start reading, someone like Scotus, and you're just, you're out of your league very, very quickly. And that was one of the things I just came to appreciate so much, was it really does feel like you're just never going to end. It's like Latin. You're never going to end. You're never going to finish studying it. It's just going to keep going deeper and deeper. And I love to even, I've actually done a course for Pontifex University on the beauty, truth, and goodness, but with a focus on beauties. And I really love the medieval focus on light. I think that whole conversation about light, both from a physical element, but also from the spiritual element, is so deep and rich, and I think offers us much. And, maybe when I move on to another, when I'm done sort of doing a lot of the Theology of Home things that I'm doing in other book projects, that might be something that I come back to, is really a deep discussion of that, because I just think it's so rich, and something that as Christians we can, it just feels endlessly deep, and endlessly something that your soul can kind of glean and absorb from and be nourished by in really rich and beautiful ways.
That's fantastic. Now back to the concept of so much stuff that you could talk about in the medieval age. I tell people this, and I'm always shocked. I mean, maybe you'll know it. I'm always shocked that people look at me like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Notre Dame de Paris, l'Ecclesia, or La Ecclesia en Paris. There's the spires, the twin spires, and then in the front there is this ginormous, most beautiful in the world that's ever been created. It's been replicated many times. They call it the Rosetta window, the rose window, okay? You know who built that? You know who paid for that?
Who paid for it?
See, Saint King Louis IX bought and paid.
Nice.
Yes. And he didn't live to see it finished.
That's what I love, is that nobody who started Notre Dame lived to see it finished.
Nope.
Like, that's, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, like the attention span. How many of us would start something where we're like, well, I'll never see it finished, but I'll just keep building, It just doesn't exist. And it's that sense of, my life for yours, of passing down to the generation something that's worthy and good and important and beautiful. And we just don't have that anymore. And that's I go back to that Notre Dame and all these churches, these Gothic churches that took centuries, certainly decades, many, many decades, if not centuries, to make. And they just kept going. There's not that many ruins that they're like, no, we got tired. You don't find them. They finished them. They're done.
And they stand today, and we marvel at them and go like, how did they do it? Because you think of them as, again, the way Hollywood portrays them and the way the modernists portray them. These are a bunch of knuckle-dragging Neanderthals who never took a bath, who had no teeth, and their faces were always covered with soot, and they were ugly, and they smelled. And they's just stupid. And I'm like, if you know anything about the people that built Notre Dame de Paris, you think about no one went and told the architect, if you will, no one went and told the architect that when he hired the guildsmen that built the timber frame, he didn't tell them how to do it. They knew how to do it. This is how they were going to. The guy that was in the guild that built the timber frame, he didn't go to university. He learned it from a master. He was an apprentice, became a journeyman, then became a master. But he could figure out, Carrie, the trig. That's trigonometry, to know how to build the roof of that church. Which is why when the fire hit it, most of it didn't fall down.
Isn't that amazing? It's amazing. And, you know, we actually live on a small piece of property that backs up to federal land. That the land is all battlefield land, actually, from the Civil War. And when we moved in, there were these trees that created the arching, much like the arching in Gothic cathedrals. And it was one of those moments where I remember standing at the back of my house and looking at these trees and realizing that's where they got the idea for it. And they were able to replicate it in a way that, you know, carries all this weight of Notre Dame. And then, of course, the flying buttresses, you know, all of that is just incredible what they were able to accomplish. And, you know, the fact that it's still standing when, you know, the houses that we build now are lucky if they're in good shape 50 years from now. It's astounding because we have really sacrificed so much and we think we're really making progress. Well, maybe there's progress with technology and convenience, but in terms of, you know, 200 years from now, 1,000 years from now, what's going to still be standing? It's not going to be most of these homes that we're living in that are made so quickly. And
another amazing thing about that, you know, you can always do an hours-long deep dive on the medieval period.
Mm-hmm.
Most school children today, or 20 years ago, one of their favorite movies would have been The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Everyone knows who Quasimodo was. But the point of the whole movie is that Quasimodo was a real character. He actually existed. And there actually was a bell there for him to ring. And so, you know, you have this figure, this hunchback. Go back a little further into the history of the medieval time. One of the most famous, and you're one of the most profound Mariologists that I know, especially in practice and in writing, we get the tune, we get the song, the Salve Regina, from a cripple. From Herman Contractus. So you have these Catholic figures that are beloved, and they're famous, and they create, and they bring about beauty, the ringing of the bell, the singing of the chant. And here are two guys that in today probably wouldn't escape the womb if their condition was normal.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that, you know, I think a lot too about just the, I can't remember the name of the orphanage in Florence, but there's an former orphanage in Florence that is now studied by architects worldwide. And it's just the most stunning building ever. And it's just that sense of how do we take care of life? How do we take care of those? And not only were these two that you just mentioned taken care of, but they were given opportunities to use their gifts and have a life that was very, it had significant meaning. And so that's the amazing thing. So to think about this orphanage in Florence, that they spent all of this time and money and energy making something really beautiful for these orphans. This is a paradigm that is just very hard, I think, for our minds to be wrapped around, because we just think of these people as useless and not in a way, they couldn't possibly ever be happy given their circumstances. And I think that's just what a great thing history does to help us understand a different way of thinking about those that society thinks aren't important in the culture today.
And if you go to just on the subject of the architecture for just a moment, if you in Cincinnati, Ohio, above the Ohio River, there is an old 150-year-old cathedral basilica-style church. It's at the top of a hill. It's called Mount Adams. It's just absolutely stunning. And I went to an event there in 2022. I was the MC. It was a Latin Mass event. My friend Bucket invited me, and I got to meet one of my Catholic priest heroes, Father Collins, and it was just a wonderful evening. But the first thing I thought when I walked in there, and you look up, the peak of that ceiling is about 130, 40 feet off the ground. And you see that they didn't just put a ceiling up there. They rounded it off with plaster. There's paintings, there are frescoes up there. It's absolutely incredible. You could see where the beautiful high altar was in the back. There's still some parts of it. You know, you have the stained glass windows and all that. My thought, Carrie, when I saw that, and it's been turned into an event center now. I'm like, who is the person that was the last person? First of all, who's the person whose idea it is that looks at that and goes like, oh yeah, that's ugly, that sucks. That's one thing. And the second thing, who's the person that is the last person out that has set a mass there? A beautiful, holy, Catholic mass there, and walked down and went, phew, glad that's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's amazing what's happened to these spaces and all these little churches, you know, places like Ohio and Massachusetts and whatnot. I mean, they're just, it's just incredibly tragic what we're letting go of in terms of our heritage and, you know, what has been built into these places. That's just magnificent and will not be seen, you know, we won't see buildings like that on a wide scale for a very long time. We're seeing it on a small level from, you know, someone like Duncan Stroik or others. Duncan McRoberts is another architect. But it's certainly not widespread, and I'm not a real devotion to it. It's happening in pockets, but I think, my own parish is the 1970s. And then I go downtown, you know, my town was established in early 1700s, and there's the old Catholic church on Main Street. You see the steeple, and of course it's a law office now. It's incredible what we have abandoned, and even that, just the trends, like, why did people think that was a good thing to abandon? You know, it's just, I think it's really sad. Yeah. Well, we've got our work cut out for us, for sure.
Well, I have two points on that. One is in Sulphur, Louisiana, there was a beautiful old Catholic church, and sometime in the 1970s or so, they decided that they were going to turn it into the church. Basically moved out. They sold it in Louisiana. We have parishes and not counties. We have le parish, n'est pas le county. I tried to say that in French. Was I close?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a courthouse in there for 30 years, and then the parish outgrows the courthouse and goes, we don't want the building anymore. The archbishop finds out about it and goes, wait, don't put that up for auction. We'll take it. But before he says we'll take it, he reaches out to to whoever the president of the ICK is, and he asks them. He goes, "Would you be interested in coming into our parish if I could get you a building?" And, you know, they're famous now. They go around and they restore old churches. They've done St. Walburga's, St. Walburga's in England, which I've been to, and they're still working on. And they completely and totally, with Canon Jean-Marie Marot. Canon is awesome. I talk about a Frenchman, a wonderful man, a priest. They have completely restored now it is the oratory of St. Francis de Sales, and you go in it and you're transported back to probably the 17th or 18th century in a beautiful Catholic church. So it is happening.
Yeah, no, I think it's heartening. It feels like a great trend, and maybe more beautiful churches are being built than, you know, my 1970s church. So that's definitely heartening.
Well, and I think one of the impediments to that, Carrie, is, and we can go back and wax a little bit about the medieval time, you're not going to have cathedrals like Notre Dame or anything like Salzburg Cathedral or anything like that built unless you have guilds that have returned, because you're going to have workmen that are going to have to transpire. They're going to have to go it's going to take 3 or 4 generations to do it. So you're going to have the guilds.
Yeah. No, I think that's really one of the interesting things. And I love the trend that's happening that I'm seeing a lot in different places. Michigan's one place, Ohio, South Carolina, you know, these different schools. In fact, South Carolina has a university. A friend of mine is a student there. She's doing architecture, but they have been teaching all of the ironworks and, you know, all of these kinds of types of, material arts that nobody's been learning. And, much of it in South Carolina specifically is just because they have all this architecture that they don't know how to repair, the plaster and all of the coffering and whatnot. And so it's really heartening to see these vocational kinds of schools coming back into being something. And really gaining a lot of traction. In fact, I've been praying that one of my children will end up, an architect or a builder or something like that at some point, because I just think it's so laudable and incredibly beautiful, and just a very different track than, certainly what my husband and I did in our own studies.
And in Charleston, South Carolina, I know the guy, Wade Ratsey. I know the headmaster. It's called the Academy of Building Arts.
Yeah. And maybe there's two. I think there's another one that name isn't ringing the bell, but maybe I just don't remember. So, but yeah, it's incredible what's happening in South Carolina.
They crank plasterers out because old historic buildings are all plaster and no one knows how to fix it.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great vocation. Become a plasterer. I actually lived around the corner from a plaster company in Rome. It was right next to a little cookie shop. And every day I walked past it, and there would be plumes of plaster sort of coming out of the door of the building in Trastevere, kind of near, there's a small church to St. Benedict of Norcia there. Actually, it used to be the closet where he prayed when he had his first conversion there in Italy, in Rome rather. And in any event, I finally went in, and we actually own a piece of plaster. It's a Madonna with Jesus in her lap and then St. John at her knee. And I thought, for $110 or 110 euros, I bought this piece that's now in a niche in our home. But it was just incredible. I was like, I wish I could just have these made in America, because they're just amazing pieces that I think people would really love. So that's a job for somebody who's looking for some work.
Oh, absolutely. Let's switch gears here for just a moment. Let's go back to the literary world here. In your early days, your name would have been associated with George Weigel's. Did you intern with him, or did you just know him?
I was his assistant for 3 years. I worked for him for 3 years, and we're still good friends. And the idea we worked together, we collaborated together on this book called City of Saints, and it was basically the Pilgrim's Guide of Krakow, John Paul II's life there. And I had actually been working on this book when I worked for him. I went to Krakow a couple of weeks after John Paul II died and did all of this research, and then just thought, oh no, this train has sailed. No. This train has left the building. People aren't really interested in John Paul II right now. And then when the World Youth Day was announced that it would be in Krakow, I thought, okay, I'm going to just find my old notes and pull this up again. And anyway, we ended up deciding to write it together. So he wrote sort of one part, and I wrote a lot of the historical pieces in it. So it was very much a collaborative effort. And so that's what we did together. And I think that was the first book that officially came out with my name on it. And then I've since done 9 more. But yeah, that was the very first kind of book project that I worked on.
Well, you mentioned Michael Novak earlier. His father, Robert Novak, was just a titan in journalism. And
I don't think they were. Actually, I don't think they're related. No. They're different.
Are they different? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there was a Novak who was a titan in journalism.
Yeah, Robert Novak was a titan. You're right, and had a big conversion and was a really interesting character. But I don't think they were related.
My first radio interview ever was with Robert K. Novak.
Nice.
1992.
Wow.
1992.
That's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he.
They're not related.
He was, I love the kind of the end of his career at CNN. You probably weren't following it, won't know the story, but he's on basically what the antecedent or the after version of Firing Line. And and Michael Kinsley's on there, and there's some sort of an argument going on, and Novak is just getting heated, and he's not making any headway with the leftard Michael Kinsley, and finally Novak stands up, takes his lapel mic, rips it off, and he goes, "I'm out of here. This is bullshit." And he throws the lapel mic down, and he walks off the set, and never comes back.
Wow.
That is the end of Robert Novak on CNN.
That's amazing. Well, and he has an incredibly beautiful conversion story. I used to know it better. I don't remember the details of it, but I know even he had a very holy death, and really just remarkable what the transformation of his life from CNN to the guy that's throwing his mic off at CNN. So really great. And there's actually a scholarship fund, I think, for Robert Novak Scholarship Fund for young conservatives looking to sort of make their way in journalism and whatnot. So yeah, he's definitely left an impression for sure.
Well, he was an actual journalist, because if you go back in time, he worked with a guy named Roland Evans and Novak. These were famous columnists. This is when the Washington Compost was actually kind of a newspaper that tried to get the story right and hired people that actually tried to get it. You're nodding your head going, like, Evans and Novak. Yeah, you know Evans and Novak. There's nothing like that today. Nothing. That's tragic, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's really ugly what's happened to the media and the culture, for sure, and just how biased it is. And I think I first noticed this bias when I was working for Weigel when John Paul II died, and it was one of those things. I remember driving to work in the morning and just wanting to pull my hair out because I knew the details of the story so well. In fact, I was on BBC during the conclave. And the Canadian broadcasting. I had done some media because I knew the conclave and I knew the story and I knew John Paul's life and all of that. And, just listening to the reporting on it was so maddening, because I realized, like, if they're going to get this stuff so wrong, what else do they get so wrong? And that was a really enlightening moment for me. But, it was stupid things like, the Carmelites were referred to as the Karma-lites with a K, K-A-R-M-A -L-I-T-E. Oh, no. Yeah, that's what a Carmelite was to them. Like
a bright light game.
Yeah, exactly. It comes with batteries. Anyway, it was bizarre. Yeah. So it was that. I think that experience was very eye-opening, just how shallow the media is and the agenda that's so easy to push. And of course, I realized this at working with Zenit, how easy it is to slant an article. You just leave out key pieces, or, you don't interview that person, or, it's just really, I think, a great experience to just, realize this is really not hard to slant something in the way in which you want it to be read. And that's what we, reading all day long, unfortunately.
I remember, so JP2 or St. John Paul II dies, what, 2002? 3?
5.
2005.
Wait, what year was it?
I think you're right. I think it's closer to 2005. I remember because...
Yeah, I think it was nice.
I remember doing show prep that day. And I remember, and this is before my reversion to the faith. I mean, I was Catholic, but I was like, "Oh yeah, it's Easter. Yeah, got to go to mass tomorrow.
Right,
big day.
Maybe we'll get some eggs. Right, yeah."
And I remember, and it didn't sit right with me, because even then I was still being guided and controlled by Our Lady, even though I didn't know it. I heard the anti-Catholic bigotry and hatred because Bush had the flag at the White House flown at half-mast for John Paul II. And he came on and he gave a little address and he goes, about the end of communism with Reagan and Thatcher and all that. And that's how most people remember John Paul. And, people are going to write books about that's not how it ended and all that. I'm like, I think that the general arc of that is correct. There were other factors for certain, but I don't think that having the Polish Pope opposed to communism with the great actor and then the English stateswoman, I don't think that was a bad combination. And I also, and I heard that day just the seething hatred from people who hate Catholics and the Catholic Church. And it came out all over, and it blew me away.
It was everywhere. Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I remember. And actually, I think that at some point, I got an NPR, I was contributed to having an NPR reporter have to quit her job. I don't know if she resigned or if she was fired. I can't remember her name. But she interviewed me, and she interviewed Phil Munoz, who is a professor at Notre Dame. and she interviewed Father Newhouse, the three of us, for a story that she was doing. And I think it was on Pope Benedict. No, it was on John Carey. That's who it was. And, she ended up figuring out, someone figured out that all three of us had been in Krakow together in this program that Father Newhouse and Michael Novak and Weigel put together. I went several years, first as a student and then as, worked for Weigel. But the problem is that we all knew each other, and they thought that this had been sort of some conspiracy, kind of thing. But the funny thing is she just interviewed us after the National Catholic Prayer Breakfast at St. Matthew's. You couldn't hit any person that you hit there, probably in some way or another was related to each other through an office or through some kind of connection. And so I felt terrible for her that this happened. Because of the fact that it just was such a random thing. I mean, she's interviewing Father Newhouse in New York and then comes down here and grabs two people that were willing to talk to her at St. Matthew's. And it turns out we're all sort of connected. But that's just how small the Catholic world was at that point. And I think it's grown slightly. But it just ended up, I think it really damaged her career that those connections were made. So.
And all over one of the worst Catholics in public life in history, John Carrie. They came for the Vietnamese, and they attached telephone wires to testicles. This guy is if you combine him with Biden, I mean, now, man. Lucifer's got to be going, oh boy, is this
That's
great.
A ticket.
Dude, he's going like, I'm gonna help Dante become more famous, because there's gonna need to be a new Dante. I'm gonna make a new level here in hell for all of the bad Catholic U.S. politicians.
Oh. Yeah, and he's gonna have to wear a spacesuit. You remember the spacesuit picture?
Yes.
I mean, that's what's seared into my image is a spacesuit picture where he looks like a total caricature of anyone. Yeah. Oh, God bless Carrie.
At the Gress household, in your household, again with your lovely husband and your family, do you guys actually have like the dinner table conversations? Do you have the dinner table and have the?
We have the dinner table. We have the conversations. Yeah, we actually work really hard to make sure we have dinner every night together.
Do you talk about modern events like this? Do you talk about how bad the president, regime leader Biden makes the rest of us Catholics have to work that much harder to go like, no, that's not what you do. Yeah. No, we don't believe that.
No. I mean, my two oldest are girls. They're 15 and 13, and they both know that deeply. And my younger sons, one's 4, so he doesn't know anything, but the other two are definitely dialed into it. I think we have some pretty rich dinner conversations. We also talk about ridiculous things as well, but we value that dinner conversation for sure, and definitely try to do it, every night whenever. And if people are missing because of soccer or whatnot, they're missing, but we still do it. So those conversations happen.
The ones that leave the nest during the day, the girls, they come home and repeat things to you, and you go like, no.
Well, that's the great thing. They go to a great school, so I don't have to worry about that. I don't feel like at the end of the day I have to like clean things up and like, oh, what a mess was just made. Like, let's go back and look at history. No, I have my 15-year-old in particular is very precocious and does her research and knows probably more than I do on things because she's a researcher like her father. And gratefully, it's helped significantly to have a school where it's reinforcing the things that we're telling them at home.
Let's talk about Mary for a moment, Our Lady. Were you always a Marian, or did you come to Mary later in life? And if you came later in life, what was the catalyst?
So when I was a little girl, I remember my dad showing me the movie Song of Bernadette, and my father had a really strong devotion to Our Lady. He was he carried a rosary in his pocket. And I think in certain respects, he died right after I turned 16. And I think there was probably a lot of things about him theologically that I know now I would probably disagree with. I mean, he was very much he grew up, at the edge of the Depression, and he was an older dad to begin with. And, but I think he took on a lot of the sort of post-Vatican II nonsense, but he never abandoned Our Lady. And, even when he died, he was very In fact, actually, we were supposed to go as a family to Medjugorje. He was really keen on this idea, and that's when we found out he had pancreatic cancer, and our trip was canceled. And then he passed away about 6 or 7 months after that. But I think that he, because he had this strong devotion to her, that was sort of passed on to me. I was sort of intrigued by her even before his death, and really interested in Marian apparitions and whatnot. But I didn't ever, for the longest time, I didn't feel close to her. I felt like I wanted to be close to her, but I didn't feel like I really knew her as a mother. And so it was always sort of this constant, like I certainly took on the rosary. I started praying it regularly. And later, when I was in college, I had some really amazing women that sort of took me under their wing. They're all my mom's age, and they started praying the rosary at our high school chapel every Thursday morning. And I would join them. And there I learned about Marian consecration through St. Louis de Montfort. I learned all kinds of things. I mean, I went to Marian conferences with them. It was really instructive in a way that I certainly hadn't had in my parish life or the Catholic high school that I went to. There were so many things that I was like, wow, that's a mortal sin. Like, wow, mortal sin. Like, what is a mortal sin? Exactly. Who knew this was a problem? I shouldn't have been doing that. So I learned a lot. And I also had a grandmother who was very involved in the New Age. And so I look back on those years of college and I just see this tug of war going on with, the New Age and Our Lady. And, thanks be to God, Our Lady won out. But so it was just a long, very slow process. And I think even as an adult woman now with 5 children, I think I feel closer to her because I understand the kind of love that she probably has towards me, because I understand what it's like to love my children so deeply. And, it's obviously a shadow of the kind of love she has for us as her children. But it's helped me a lot to really understand that kind of depth that's there.
And the Marian Option book, which was the first one that you actually wrote about Our Lady, I seared into my mind, and it probably helped me become more of a Marian. Although, if I told you my story, this would go back to when I was born. And she was always there, and I just didn't know it. But I still remember the first, the opening page of the Marian Option, and it's you describing that about painting and beauty and art, and then you saying or typing that in the history of the world, in the history of the human race, there has been no more painted, sculpted, drawn, name your form, sung about human being than Mary of Nazareth. And I took that away with me, and I think about it every single day.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. No, it's pretty incredible. And actually, I just found out last summer what my baptism day was, and it was May 13th, which is, of course, Our Lady of Fatima. Yeah. And one of my daughters, her first communion and her confirmation have been on May 13th. So I think she's absolute, like you said, she's there in our lives. We just don't know it. And then we sort of look back and realize how influential she's been. But that blew my mind away too, was just this sense of the most powerful woman in the world, that this is who she has always been. And that was really what I think focused my ideas on the Anti-Mary Exposed. That second book that followed up from the Marian Option was the idea came to me when Hillary Clinton was running for president. And I thought, if she wins, she will be the most powerful woman in the world. And I just thought, these are not similar women. And that really, when I saw that contrast, that's really what led me down this path of really studying feminism and just seeing what it has done to women and how far it has redirected us away from the Marian as a model for womanhood.
Well, you're talking to someone who celebrated the first 52 years of his life as a birthday on Groundhog's Day and didn't know I was born on the high feast day of Candlemas.
That you finally figured it out. That's beautiful.
It took 52 years, but...
Right. You finally got it, though. That's big. That's big.
And it's amazing to me. I could share just story after story after story. As a matter of fact, I have just a sidebar real quick. Do you have a St. Anthony of Padua find something for you miracle story?
Oh, well, I do. But St. Jude has been really the bigger one of late. Yeah, I mean, St. Anthony does all these kinds of little things, but I've been asking St. Jude because usually when I lose something, I feel like I'm never going to find it. And then it feels like St. Jude has to come in. So
anyway, what did he find? What did he find?
Oh, well, this is a ridiculous. The recent one was just a week ago. I had these new pair of running shoes that I loved and, I needed because the other pairs that I had were just falling apart literally. And I somehow misplaced one of them. And for weeks I was looking in this closet. We have this closet that's sort of like it's all the like baby clothes and things that are going to be passed down to the 4-year-old, things like that I just haven't been able to get rid of. And somewhere in this closet, I lost one shoe. And obviously you can't do much running with just one shoe. So anyway, finally I was like, St. Jude, you got to help me find this. Like, because I have shin splints. I mean, I needed the shoe. Anyway, half hour later, my son, who's 11, says, "Mommy, there's something outside the door for you," because I was taking a shower. And I open the door. Of course, there's the shoe. And my son, he actually thinks I'm in tears because I'm like, "There's my shoe." St. Jude found me my shoe.
Yes, I can run.
I can run. And my son thinks I'm like teasing him, like I'm being sarcastic or something. And I'm getting all emotional about this shoe. Anyway, but yeah, we have a lot. St. Jude helps us with a lot of things around our house for sure.
Okay, so just 2 days ago, today's Wednesday, so on Monday. All right, I'm going to show you. This is made by the Daughters of Mary on Long Island. We're not going to talk about them theologically, but I love the sisters. They made this. I bought it in 2013, and it's been in 4 countries. It has been touched to over 300 first-class relics. And
you lost it.
No, but see the corpus.
Yeah.
Okay, and you see there's black enamel down here where there's supposed to be black enamel here and here as well. So it started to come apart on me. And yes, I was praying. I was on my way to the store on a Saturday to the hardware store to go get some stuff. And I had both my windows open, and I'm sitting here and I'm praying the rosary, and a gust of wind blows my hat off, and it's going to go out the window. So with the rosary in this hand, I reach for the hat, and I grab it, and the rosary and our blessed Lord hits the dashboard, and I'm like, because I already knew it was loose, hits the dashboard, and of course I go, no! And when I pull it back, it's empty. He's gone, and I'm like, no. I'm like Jim. I'm Jim Kirk in The Wrath of Khan. I'm like, God. So I just went, calm down. You're praying a rosary. There's no despair. Do not be discouraged. And I go, St. Anthony, I know you will help. I know it didn't blow out the window. I know you will help me find it. So this is 3 weeks ago. I looked 10 times in that car. Every time I go in the car in my Sorrento, I look and I'm like, today's the day. Today's the day. He's going to help me find it. And I look and it is nowhere to be found. On Monday, I go and I'm like, you know what? I have a bag in the car that has some electrical wires, audio broadcasting wires in it. I think that maybe the wire I'm looking for is in that bag, and it's in my back seat. I go and I open the door in the back seat, and there is a towel on top of the bag, okay? Because I carry a towel around for emergencies. Jesus. I move the towel, and shazam, there he is, laying there. No. Yes.
So he got under the towel in the bag in the back seat.
No, St. Anthony found him on the road and put him on the bag and put the towel on top of it. Yes.
Oh my goodness, St. Anthony is the best.
And I just all the way.
I don't think I'm asking for big enough things. I think I need to be asking for more.
So all the way back to there was another one. I'll give you one more Mary story. I was down in Our Lady. I've been praying for something I've been asking her for, and I'm like, okay, all right, I give. It's not going to happen. And maybe I've been a bad boy and you just stopped answering my prayer. So I'm just going to move on to something else. So I go and I do a walk every morning. You run, I walk. I walk at 3:45 in the morning and I say a whole rosary. It takes about 3/4 of a mile. So I do my walk, and I'm beating myself up, and even though I'm doing the rosary, I'm like, okay, Mother, I'm going to move on, and I have this doubt about her. And I get back to my house, and on the sidewalk, I see a piece of paper. It looks like this. It's like okay. It's bifolded like that. And I'm like, that wasn't there when I left. So I go and I pick it up and I look and there's nothing on this side, but I can see that there's handwriting. I open it up on the inside and I look. I don't live in a very Catholic neighborhood. I open it up on the inside, the Salve Regina in Latin. And I just dropped on my knees and went, okay, I get it. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Oh, I love it. Well, you know what? The problem is you've now opened yourself up to all these prayer requests. People are going to be like, Mike, you got to pray for this. We want to find this. That's awesome. No. That's amazing.
Don't ask me. No, I'm the last person you want to ask. Let's talk about the book that you published with Regnery Publishing. What was it like publishing with a secular outfit and not Ignatius or Tan or one of the other wonderful Catholic presses that you work with? Was there any different? Was the response any different?
Well, it's been really an interesting journey because I loved working with Regnery. Regnery was amazing. That just Tom Spence, who was in charge of it when I was there, is just an incredible Catholic gentleman. There are actually a lot of Catholics working there. But the book was really geared towards non-Catholics because I had had so many people say, can you write a book like the Anti-Mary, but that's not for Catholics, like Baptists or Protestants or atheists? Anybody can read. Any woman can read and still get something out of it. So that was really the goal and why I went with a secular press. So actually, it's been really interesting because Regnery got bought out right at the end of the year. And so there's been some real, just trying to figure out the new publisher and trying to figure out, how to work with Sky Horses who bought it. So it's coming out in paperback in August. And there was actually a short period. There was it wasn't bad. That didn't feel short, but there was about 2 months when you couldn't actually buy the book because when Regnery sold, it had just finished its first print run, and the new people didn't want to print the paperback until August. So gratefully, they did a short print run of the paperback, so it's currently available. But so it's been really interesting.
Woman, right? The End of Woman.
Yeah, the End of Woman. So it's, but it's been really great. I mean, the fruit of it has been remarkable. I'm hearing from women all the time in terms of just hearing, I finally feel heard. I understand why my life is a mess. Just an incredible thing. Like when you tell people the truth, I think they really respond to it well. So that's been amazing. I think that I've certainly shaken a lot of cages, when it comes to Catholic women and their understanding of feminism and whatnot, because I think a lot of people just don't, fundamentally, I've realized most of what people know about feminism, much like the medieval issue, it's just wrong. Like it's just been this very incredibly crafted narrative, and most of us just think, oh, well, feminism is just there to help women. And so it was amazing to go back to the very first wave and just really see that, no, this has really been socialism. This has really been this gospel of discontent. This has really been an effort to make women unhappy in their lives and really push them into the workforce and make them great Marxists. And so that's, it's hard because most people don't know that, and they've never thought that way before. They've never seen it that way before. They've never heard that before. And so I feel like there's kind of this lag between what, if I'm the only one saying this initially, it's very hard to sort of absorb that. People need to hear it from other people. And gratefully, other people are talking about it. I've actually recently discovered a woman named Janice Fiamengo, who is a Canadian scholar. She's retired from, I think, the University of Ottawa. I could be mistaken, but She was a literature professor, former feminist, and she's gone back and done an incredible amount of research on the first wave of feminism, and much of it overlaps mine. She's got some other stuff that I didn't touch, like what was going on in England during the early 1900s and things like that, where women were actually using like what we would consider sort of BLM or Antifa kinds of tactics of, you're either for us and you're going to put our sign in your window, or we're going to destroy your business kind of tactics, firebombing houses, manor homes, really not nice people. Women, wonderful women. Exactly. And these are, women that have statues in the park in England and whatnot, because they are credited with getting the vote. So anyway, it's been really interesting, just kind of trying to sort through, and help people understand just how much we have bought both on the left and the right, in terms of feminism, and how, it's a challenge, because I think feminism has really, it's got a lock on us. Men don't want to talk about it because that's just not a fight they want to get into, and totally understandably. And women have bought into it so deeply that it's just not something that they would think anything's wrong with. So anyway, yeah, it's been really just a real journey, much more so than even the Anti-Mary Exposed, because I think people understand Our Lady, and they understand her as a model. But and I didn't go into the first wave at all. With the Anti-Mary Exposed, I stopped in about 1960 in terms of my research, and then this book goes all the way back to 1780s. And so it's been kind of a whirlwind in terms of just figuring out how to articulate things in a way that they can be heard, because people are so wrapped up in what they think they know about feminism, and it's just so much of it's not true.
Of course, 20th century proto-feminist, if you will, Margaret Sanger. There were a lot of women that were involved in the eugenics movement. They couldn't have done it without. They had to have the women go along with them. So without Sanger and them. Okay, I promised to get you out of here in time, so I'm going to get you out of here in time. But I'm thinking as you're talking, when you came out with the Marian option, was that your title, or did the publisher suggest it?
It was my title. It was actually a name that had never been used before. Oh no, the Marian option. Yeah, it was my title. That one we copied obviously from the Benedict option. We were sort of trying to just propose it as an alternate. The Anti-Mary Exposed was a new title. The word anti-Mary had never been used before. We didn't know if we should hyphenate it, like how we should use it. So yeah, that was definitely new. Theology of Home was brand new. Nobody had heard of Theology of Home before. And, I often have to tell people it's called Theology of Home, not Theology of the Home, the way Theology of the Body is. Anyway, so yeah, it's been fun to do a lot of new things, but they're all really related, because Theology of Home never would have come about if I hadn't written the Anti-Mary Exposed, because in the Anti-Mary Exposed, I realized women have bought into this so deeply because the left controls culture. And the left controls culture through beauty and savviness, through a lot of sophistication that we just don't use on the right. And they have to, because they're lying. I mean, much of what they're promoting is not based on truth or reason. It's a lot of it's emotion, and just important influencers. So this is what they have to rely upon. And, this is one of the things I've been doing a lot of recently, is just talking about, now that we're dealing with kind of this new Dobbs world, how do we start gaining back some of the culture that we've lost because we were spending so much time on the legal aspects of the pro-life cause, which obviously was very important, but we didn't realize how much was receding culturally. So I'm trying to, certainly through Theology of Home, we've got all kinds of things popping and growing at Theology of Home, but just in other ways with pro-life leaders, helping them understand, we can say many of these things till we're blue in the face, but if they're not presented in a way that people can actually absorb them, then we're not really making any strides forward. So I think that's another piece.
I think that's profound, because I think Dobbs has exposed just how weak the pro-life movement's arguments were. That you concentrated all your fire, almost all of it, certainly too much of it, on the court and getting Roe reversed. and weren't working. Not to say that people weren't, because there were, but certainly not enough, weren't working on the hearts and mind angle and on the Marian option and that kind of thought. And I think that it took 45 years to get rid of, to make Roe history here. Heaven knows, because this is generational now. Heaven knows, and barring God actually, a divinely inspired event. Heaven knows how many generations it takes to reverse this, because it's deep, and it is deep, and it's bad. I have daughters, adult daughters. I can tell you, and I think that they would respond to Our Lady, but it's a lot harder of a sell than you think. And maybe I'm up. Maybe That's why I'm in sales and not in management. So maybe it's so hard. Maybe I should stop trying to sell it and let her do the work. Okay, I gotta let you go, because speaking of children, you have to go. I want to keep you on schedule. But my final question, I actually had 5 left, so we can do another one of these somewhere down the road. I just scratched the surface, so I'm going to leave the vocation and the sea salt and the candle making and all that behind. Give us your final answer here. Final answer. Give us your final thought on what is the future, or what do you see in the near future for women in the Catholic Church and the roles that they play?
Yeah. I'm really excited about the future of women in the Catholic Church, because I think there's so many women that are waking up to the reality of, first of all, the importance of their homes and their role in the family. Even just the fact that their body is a home, all of these aspects are really coming to light. I mean, this is obviously what I see a lot in theology of home. And I think we hear a lot of women who just say, I'm so encouraged by what you're doing. And so I think that's amazing. But yeah, I think that a lot of the just kind of the old communist stuff that we've been buying for so long, just the fact that we think we can reform feminism into something different. This is really what has left so many women muddled and confused. And feminism it's Marxist, but it's also a way to protect yourself. And this is what feminism has done, is sort of make, my colleague Noelle Mering has this amazing quote. She says, the ideology of the sexual revolution makes men soft, women hard, and children unprotected. And I think that just captures all of it. And I think that men are getting tired of it and want to be tough and want to be real men again. I think women are tired of being tough. They recognize their vulnerability when you become a mother. They recognize the challenges of birthing a child or children or caring for them. And that's not a bad thing, to be vulnerable. But it's actually a beautiful way in which obviously God has created us, much like the Trinity. So I think that it's kind of an exciting time, because we're switching from this old model of, you got to be tough and strong and, independent, to more of a sense of what does it mean to be tender and receptive and, pondering these things in your heart. What does it mean to follow Our Lady in these very tangible ways in your life? What does it mean to hold a child in your arms and not be able to fix their problem, but just hold them? Those kinds of tiny switches that we're making from doing to being, I think is what's happening and what's going to change the American Catholic Church significantly. I do think we don't put enough emphasis on the problem that women have been in the culture. But I think because women are starting to get this, it's just going to become apparent. And I think it's also going to be great because men are beginning to feel like they can talk about these things in a way that they haven't been able to in the past 40, 50 years.
We'll have to leave it there. Carrie, thank you very much. And next time we'll talk about candle making and sea salt gathering.
I don't do the sea salt gathering, just so you know, but I'm more than happy to use it.
An interior design, which people will accuse you of, you're the interior design theology lady.
I know. Yep.
No, I'm not an interior designer.
All these funny hats. I will take all of them. So, yeah, not going to complain.
It's been a pleasure and a joy, and I think our audience will get a lot out of it. And I told you before we started that we were going to go places that you don't go on EWTN interviews. You certainly don't go on National Communist Radio, NPR interviews either, and that's why we do them here like this on the Church Doctrine. So give you.
So what's my title? I want to know the title.
You want to know it now?
Yeah.
There's something about Carrie.
Yes.
She likes it. You like it.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it. So I'll take it.
Okay, so we're sticking with the movie titles, and there's something about Carrie. All of you just remember that you can get all the previous episodes of the Church Doctrine on my Substack, thekingdude.substack.com. Please visit the YouTube channel. Look for Crusade Radio Network, and they're all video there as well. And send me suggestions for who you'd like to have sit in Carrie's chair next time, because I'm open. I just love talking to people. Send me an email. I am kingdude@protonmail.com. For Carrie Gress and for our producer, Justin Redmond here today, I'm Mike Church saying thanks for watching the Church Doctrine. And something that I picked up from Brother Andre Marie, but probably was aided and assisted along by Miss Gress is, God bless you and Mary keep you.